This is a rare opportunity to hear from a founder of a startup company, and I'm super excited to be speaking with Paul Millett, the co-founder and chief operating officer in Invertigro. I can't wait to hear more about their indoor vertical farming solution, which can grow fresh produce more or less anywhere on Earth and even in space.
Hi everybody, Paul Millett here, as Britt kindly introduced, co-founder and COO of Invertigro. Very delighted to be having this opportunity to share a few ideas and a few thoughts this morning, and yeah, welcome any questions as we go. So my background is as an engineer and management consultant, having worked in industry for 25 plus years. Decided that it was time to look at something new, and started a venture a little more than 5 years back to build an indoor vertical farm in Singapore. And from that venture, with a bunch of colleagues, or then peers and my network from across the planet, we decided that indoor farming was definitely the future, and a way to help the planet in a big way. We Ben Lee, my co-founder and CEO, decided that the actual big opportunity we could see was to build indoor vertical farming technology to enable others. And Invertigro was born just over 2 years ago as a result of that. So we've now got a business that we're building here in Cicada Innovations. We've got a team of nearly 20 people, and a mix of a range of different skill sets that are bringing engineering, mechatronic, electrical engineering, mechanical engineering, and agronomy skills. So we're actually growing a range of produce. We've got some very clever PhD and other research folk that are running our horticultural trials. And we're very lucky to be in a position where we can actually grow in our facility here in Cicada Innovations. So the business now is building indoor vertical farming technology that allows our customers to actually build indoor farms using our hardware, our control technology, which will actually allow the technology to run and grow almost any crop that can be grown indoors. So a lot of effort goes into actually developing the software to run that technology platform. So we're in the final stages of product development and pre-commercialization trials. We're launching into some customer pilots with selected partners over the coming 6 months or so, and then we hope to be in market up and running by end of Q2, Q3 next year.
Thanks so much for sharing that insight into Invertigro and where you are now. And since our time today is fairly limited, we won't be able to answer all the questions, but we'll do our very best to get through as many as we can. And if you'd like to ask a question of Paul, please use the Q&A box. It's at the bottom of your screen. And or otherwise do scan through the Q&A box to see if there are questions that you'd like answered, and upvote them. And I remember first meeting you in 2018 when you and Ben joined Cicada's Agri-Food Tech Accelerator Program, Grow Lab, and that was to fast track the development of Invertigro. And wow, in 3 short years, you've raised capital, grown the team to 20 plus, finalized the product, now have that in production, and signed first companies here in Australia, customers in Australia. And you're growing the business both domestically and internationally. That's been quite a ride. And it's, I'd love to explore that a little bit more with you. What kind of people do you look for when you add to your team?
Good question, Brett. I think people are absolutely the key. Having really smart, really hungry and motivated people that are driven along the same lines as what we're driven by, which is to make the world a better place and to feed the world a smarter way. That's our mission. So it's a mix of smart grads that have come through some of the institutions here in Sydney and around Australia. We've got some really experienced hands as well that have come out of industry and just have a wealth of knowledge of design, some engineers that are helping us with the actual product development itself. So it's a real mix. I mentioned earlier just the types of skills, but it's actually guys that are actually developing our software and our code. We've got a very gifted CTO, the head of technology, and he's bringing a lot of really cutting edge thinking to the technology platform we're building. And we're trying to build in a way that everything we bring can be then deployed, as you say, not just domestically, but globally. So everything needs to be flexible, scalable, and modular in the way we build everything. So that sort of thinking is then, I guess, translating into the way the team think about everything they're building. We can actually then give people autonomy to step up and do their part. And so we're looking for the caliber of individuals that want to be part of something and own and drive something. So the values piece is really important to us in who we hire.
Absolutely. So when you and Ben got together, you brought the technical skills to the table, and Ben business development, and then from there, how did you grow the team? How did you find your first hire and your latest, perhaps?
Yeah, so absolutely, we mix of skills at our level. So yeah, my background in engineering and consulting, management consulting, Ben bringing the business experience and investment experience. So we had a mix of our networks. We actually, one of our hires started with us in Singapore. We started our the initial genesis of the company we have now was in Singapore. And so Todd heads up our operations team. He's got a strong engineering background and manufacturing background. He's a great guy. We've then met a lot through the community here at Cicada Innovations, which has been phenomenal. The sort of caliber that's helping other startups and in this community that are either working on a project basis, that have now joined us full time or otherwise. And we've been fortunate through internships as well to bring some real talent into the team. They've come on board, worked with us for a time. They like us, we like them. It's a great way to sort of get to know each other and go from there as well.
That's great, and certainly. So you're looking for all manner of the spectrum, from people who has expertise and experience and domain expertise to recent graduates as well, and interns that are undergoing their university education. Okay.
So, called the greybeards, have the experience that actually can bring the deep domain and deep subject matter expertise, and then those that are keen and hungry to learn, that come in with energy and can jump on board and help us drive lots of projects. So it's a really exciting time for us, and as you say, looking for a broad range of different skill sets and experience levels.
Fantastic. Well, we alluded to it in the introduction about that you're not only feeding people on Earth sustainably, but you've also been involved in a Mars project, and this is about feeding future space populations. Can you share a little bit about that?
Yeah, this was an amazing opportunity, actually. It was about this time last year. We got invited to help an expedition that was running a simulation in Hawaii, of all places, up in a volcano, 2,000 meters above sea level. Simulation of a Mars camp, basically, and 12. It was a team of all female astronauts in this facility, and they wanted to have a farm, an indoor farm in the facility that they could actually run, so that they could, with their daily task, fit in the activities to actually grow some herbs. And so we set about to build a piece of equipment that would do the job for them. And out of that, we'd already had the genesis of our inverter wall product, but this became basically the initial testing ground for it. We had to run it with minimal current, so minimal electricity consumption, absolutely almost no water, and to run in a highly automated way that let the astronauts get on with their daily tasks, and it was phenomenal actually. The team rallied to the challenge, and we built this bit of equipment. Neil, who heads up our electronics team, got on a plane and took the apparatus across, commissioned it, trained the astronauts, and then stepped back as they went about their way in Mars for 2 weeks.
Oh, Paul, that's absolutely extraordinary. And some of the special capabilities, the modifications you made to the Invertigro Cubes to adapt to Mars climates and situations, have you used some of those attributes now in the existing, the core product? Have any of those technologies or innovations flowed back to the product?
Yeah, they have actually. The big focus for us is on efficiency, because one of the big cost drivers in indoor vertical farming is the consumption of power for running in the LED lights. And so anything we can do to tune the LED lighting to give the plants exactly what they need and no more, so they get what they need when they need it. And so the technology in the trials we went through to get that system for Mars to actually run super efficient from an electricity perspective. We've been able to translate that back into our core products, and we continue to work on that area of innovation. So yeah, that was really pretty cool. And also the design of the column, the grow column, which we used for that, has evolved since then as well, and we're really excited with where that's up to now.
That is absolutely amazing, because here on Earth we must try and grow things as sustainably as possible, and they often say that in space a lot of innovation takes place which then gets brought back to Earth for use here. But that's wonderful. I'd love to hear more about it, but we've got some questions flowing in the Q&A link, and one from Karim would like to know, how can someone keep track of opportunities coming up with the team, and how can they engage with the team from outside to prepare themselves for when those roles come up?
Very good question. So we're pretty active on social. That's giving you a feel for where the business is up to and what we're doing. I think in terms of our hiring processes and so on, I'd suggest just send us an email. There's info@invertigro.com, and just get in touch. We're open to people, and we're really looking for self-starters. So it may not be right now, but you're welcome to send a CV in or just express interest, and we'd absolutely come back to you, let you know when these things are happening and when we'll be ready to look to bring on more folks. So yeah, welcome self-starters for sure, and people to reach out.
That's great. And Niang asks, who are the majority of your customers? Who do you see as your customers, whether they're producers or wholesalers or end users, or how do you position Invertigro?
Very good question. So we're looking at the end-to-end value chain for food production and for agriculture. So we're looking at potentially companies who are today players in that food supply chain that are looking for super fresh produce. In some cases, it's companies that are themselves consumers of fresh produce that they would sell on to their customers. So they could be food service organizations, could be even retailers or distributors that are looking to then sell the produce on to others. And for them, it's achieving security of supply. So that's getting the ability to grow what they need when they need it throughout the year. And as the awareness sort of grows, certainly in Australia, it's the awareness is only just starting to sort of take off. But overseas, in the States, in Europe, increasingly in Asia, that awareness is there. And so people are starting to look at, well, can we actually adopt indoor vertical farming and put a facility like this one behind me onto the side of our of our manufacturing operations, or our distribution centre converts existing spaces into farms and start to use the produce. But it is a mix of distributors that are looking to take control of their own inputs and their own inbound supply chain. Retailers are looking at this space and saying, what can we do differently? And that's potentially to work with their suppliers to use this technology rather than do it themselves, but just to shorten the supply chain. So there's the suppliers to the retailers. There's also, interestingly, companies that are that are today farmers, and they're saying, well, how do we shore up our own our own businesses, given the cycles of weather patterns, and 10 years and 3 years are good and 7 years aren't so good. So if they could actually use some of their capacity and capability on their farms to do more, this sort of technology is viable as well. Rural, remote communities that are looking to have access to good fresh produce as well, with a very short supply chain. So it's very much in our view, it could go almost anywhere. And as the market wakes up to the potential, then we're ready to sort of answer the call.
Yeah, that's extraordinary that you actually provide primary producers with the opportunity to start their seeds and their crops and to mitigate the vagaries of climate change. And there are so many applications for the technology. And you mentioned that there's a greater adoption overseas. And how do you see the attributes of Invertigro and the Invertigro Cube? How does it differentiate in terms of the technology that from perhaps other vertical farming solutions that might be out there overseas in particular?
Very good question. So the Invertigro Cube, as you can see behind me, is actually a modular system. So each of those green boxes there is an Invertigro Cube. It's like an oversized pallet, and we're actually designing the system so that you can install the technology into a latent space, be it a warehouse, and go as high as you like to go, using conventional materials handling equipment like forklifts, pallet racking. And so we install our technology into that infrastructure, watering for water, for power, for controls. But it means that it can be deployed anywhere. And so with that in mind, we can actually install and build a farm capital effectively, which is really important. A lot of indoor vertical farms that do exist have struggled because the cost of installation and the barriers to entry to get started. The actual building needs to be hermetically sealed to keep pests out, because very often the indoor vertical farms you might see in the US and around the place with open racking. People are walking around in spacesuits because you don't want to let any pests in, and one pest could destroy a whole crop. So we've closed the box itself and said, let's make that the barrier, which means we can install a lot more capital and cost effectively into existing buildings or car parks or basements or latent areas where you might want to have a farm, but the cost of actually installation is going to be prohibitive. And then there's the operating costs. So it's the existing farms, you've got to travel around and go up in scissor lifts to sort of access the crops that are in the big trays or big tray-based systems, or even column-based systems. So the manual labour and the travel time is actually very expensive. It's also not much fun hanging out all day on a scissor lift, going up and down, trying to pick plants from these big farms. So we've developed a system where we actually take the box down on a forklift, move it back to an area where we can do the staging, the harvesting, the packing of the plants, replanting, and then the box comes back and goes up into the farm. So the idea is to be using existing technology that's there, it's available across the planet. You can find a warehouse, we can find pallet racking, we can find forklift trucks. There's technology that's there available, and so we can build these farms really quickly and really affordably.
Right, and then as well as losing available technology, a lot of your technology is IP driven and based on your own deep technologies, and from the technology of the cubes itself through to the recipes, the secret recipes for growing, if you like, the produce within. And Christina asks, you've just mentioned the market's waking up to the potential. Where would you say the market is now? And are you referring to the domestic or the international market, or both?
Question. I think the market I'm referring to in Australia is literally just beginning to wake up. Is in my mind, it's the corporates or the bigger organisations that are starting to look at their supply chains. They're looking at some of the security of supply challenges. They're looking at the quality of produce, consistently be able to supply into the future as our cities grow and urban sprawl starts to take over and basically build out the good arable land that surrounds the food bowls that we built the cities initially around. So I think the demand is starting to definitely come from I guess the bigger organisations starting to look at how they ensure supply of produce for the end consumer into the future. In Australia, we're blessed. We've got such amazing produce we can get access to for most of the year, but we still import berries from New Zealand. We import stuff from all over the world, and as the supply chains get longer, that the need to actually look at something different is going to become more and more real. And so I think other countries globally have already woken up to this, and COVID has shone a big light on it for many. Singapore is a classic. So they already, pre-COVID, they'd set out with a challenge to say, let's be 30% self-sufficient by 2030. So they've got a 30 by 30 initiative. And so they're now saying, well, how can we bring that forward? What can we do sooner? The US and others that are, they're down to sort of minimal soils, and they're already starting to look at, well, what can we do to grow all year round as well? Because the climate isn't great in the winter in the northern, climes of North America. So how do we grow all year round? This sort of technology is perfect for that. The Middle East and UAE, they've got no hope of growing over there without doing something really smart like this. And they're definitely looking at this technology. And Scandinavia and Europe are a long way down the path. They've been at it for quite some years. So I can't forget Japan. They're pretty well out in front. They're 10 years into this space, and they've got a big push to be self-sufficient as much as possible for their fresh produce. So the market, we're definitely lagging in Australia, and partly because we're blessed with so much good produce. But I think we do need to look at what the cost of that produce actually is for the environment, supply chains, the quality of what we actually get to our plates when it arrives with no shelf life left, throw it in the bin. So yeah, definitely the appetite and the attitudes are changing, and I think we'll see more of that.
Great answers. Thanks for that, Paul. And just getting back to, what do you look for in employees? Are there particular traits or employment backgrounds that you think are especially valuable to you and your team?
So I think depending on the roles within the team, and as I mentioned, there's a bunch of technical roles. We will be building up our sales and our business development focus as we go forward as well. But I think as a business, what Ben and I have set out to build is a values-based organisation. So we're very keen on alignment of culture and values. And I've worked for both target-based organisations and values-based. And I'm a big believer that if you align around a core set of values and principles, and we get the DNA consistent from the outset, then that's going to stand us in good stead, and the targets will take care of themselves. We'll achieve amazing things if we make sure we've got the right mix of caliber and the right mix of values in the team. So we've got our 5 core values, and when we live and breathe them, and we recruit and we look for a cultural fit. So we can train for skills. We know we've got good people with a good attitude. We can help round out their experience. They can take on roles that give them cross-functional expertise, and they can work with customers to get more experience. but yeah, bringing on core values is really important for us.
And it's a similar question, but how do you think about the team culture at Invertigro?
Well, I think given we've set out to build a fun culture and one of driving innovation, being collaborative, not settling for second best, doing the right thing at all levels, internally and for our customers and for the world, for the planet, for the environment, being empowering. So I think, yeah, we've got a great team. I'm really excited by the energy that everyone brings, and no problem's too big. We just get together and solve stuff. We have an idea, we get on a whiteboard, we put it into a CAD machine, we 3D print it, we test it the next day. This rapid prototyping is phenomenal now, the things you can actually do in the engineering space, which is really exciting. The port guys are running experiments all the time to tweak the profiles and grow faster and grow beautiful basil and tasty rocket and produce. We're growing natives, and we're starting to collaborate with other indigenous growers nearby and start to look at that space. There's just so much opportunity to collaborate in this area. So people that bring that enthusiasm, it's pretty exciting every day actually coming to work.
Yeah, it sure is. It's very fast and furious, isn't it? And Simone asked to that end, what's it like working for a startup company as say, opposed to a more traditional company?
It's definitely different. There's ups, there's highs and lows for me, and going on the journey of raising capital and trying to get the product to market and the challenges in that sort of space. I think for the team, there's no 2 days the same. We set off with project plans to achieve certain things, and then there's a customer opportunity here, or there's a visit from an investor, or we've got this opportunity to get on TV and do something. So drop everything, let's go. It's really exciting. Like I think to get breadth of experience in a short space of time, opportunity to grow, because in a startup, you can't carry people. It's literally, step up and you can create a role for yourself for the future. And next thing, you've got a few guys working for you, and it's a team and a division. And so it's really pretty exciting for those that are up for the challenge. But it's it's definitely a bit of a bumpier ride than maybe into a corporate.
Yeah, that's someone would like to know what the most exciting food you've been able to grow. You were talking about how you're expanding into growing natives now, and how you've been growing starters for farmers and the like. So is there anything in particular that you found particularly exciting to grow?
Very good question. We've grown a plant called a salty ice plant. And it's a derivative. It's a derivative of the saltbush, and it grows on the really sort of barren shores along the coast, and you get this crystalline structure on the outside of the plant, and the fresh growth that, in the middle, it's just sort of pops on your tongue when you eat it. It's really cool, and that's delicacy in a lot of restaurants up in Asia, and it's certainly on the menu increasingly here in Australia as well. So it's not that easy to grow indoors, and we've been able to nail that. So that's pretty cool.
That sounds delicious, and I must just fess up that I have tried your produce over time, and it's honestly delicious and beyond organic. It's sensational. We've been very, very happy to be willing testers here. And actually, to that end, Nayang asks, how do you handle food waste? Do you get food waste, and if you do, how do you handle that?
So from our side, we will be generating some green waste at the end of, or our customers will when they're using our technology. So when there'd be the roots, from a harvest, there'd be some stalks if you choose to take just the leaves. But we're not actually, so we generate some waste. Our thinking is, from a circular economy perspective, to take that green waste, and we can actually convert our cubes, the inverted cube, into mealworm production. So we can convert the green waste into protein, and that could be poultry meal in the case of Switzerland, they make mealworm burgers, and I know they eat a lot of mealworms up in and around Asia as well. So increasingly, we'll start to see worms and other proteins in our diet, I think, here in Australia. But there's opportunities definitely to use every waste stream as a value stream. What we're looking to do actually is to partner with other startups and other organisations that take organic waste and go and convert the waste into energy. So for us, as a big input is energy into our sort of cost structure. If we can be close coupled to food waste, organic waste, to energy production, along with any other renewables, then that's a really big driver to get the economics even better than they are coming just off the grid. So we definitely use solar, we use other sources to augment the cost of power. But if you can actually close couple with a waste to energy production, then there's a beautiful circular economy model there. So I hope that answers the question. We don't generate a lot of waste ourselves, but we're trying to be considerate too and think about how we sort of look at the ecosystem more broadly and fit this system or this type of technology into a blueprint for application almost anywhere.
That's absolutely incredible, and yes, so needed as well. So it's wonderful that there is that application and ability to in the future to cater for turn green waste into protein enriched items or energy sources. So it's absolutely amazing. Diane would like to know, what advice would you give anyone interviewing for a role at Invertigro?
Good question. Just be yourself, Diane. I think it's, we want to see who you are, how you think, what drives you, what motivates you, and really we want you to want to be part of the team as much as we want you to be part of the team. So that's ensuring there's a good alignment of values and culture, and it's just about being real. I think, don't try and put it on. Talk to your experience, talk to your learnings, those that have learned through doing, and maybe not everything going their way first time, every time. You get broader shoulders and you become a better person to take on challenges going forward. So yeah, just be real, I'd say.
It's great advice. We have another interesting question from Sam about the technology. How does Invertigro compare to conventional agricultural systems in terms of inputs required for yield unit area? So
if we look at growing lettuce, and we'll just pick lettuce because it's a reasonable proxy for some of the stuff we're growing, we'll grow in the system you see behind me, which is 3 tiers high. So you've got the 3 levels. That's going to be roughly 8 meters off the ground, is the top of the top cube. And in that sort of infrastructure there, we'll grow 300 times more per square meter than conventional agriculture. So we can obviously bring a much bigger farm indoors and get it to work. We'll use about 3 to 5% of the water that you'd use in a traditional agriculture, where you get the evaporation and whatever else is happening out in the paddock. And we basically use, because we can grow so close to the consumption, our supply chain is food kilometres or food metres rather than food miles. And as a result, you don't have trucks on the road, you don't have the fertilizers, the pesticides and herbicides, because we grow indoors. So the inputs are super clean and healthy, and we get this produce that comes out that doesn't need to be washed. It's ready to go straight out of the box, ready for consumption. And, as I say, the closer we get the harvest to the actual demand, the consumer, the fresher that is, and it's just super healthy produce. So our model is looking to obviously replicate the sun. So you're using LED technology for that. That costs money in terms of energy consumption. And so the trade-off is really trading off those 2 things. You get the free sun, but you get all the other costs of getting it to the market and handling and waste. The other key consideration is it's somewhere between 60 and 70% of the produce, fresh and perishable produce that's grown in the field never makes it to the market. It's lost in the supply chain. Roughly a third never leaves the paddock very often, and another third or more is lost in transit, just goes off, or it just doesn't make it. Much of what you get goes off in the fridge because the shelf life's not where you need it to be once you get it home as well. So by shortening the supply chain, by getting that freshness up, we eliminate a good chunk of the waste as well. So there's pros and cons for every process, and there's definitely crops that make sense to grow broadacre in season, in the right climate. If you're close to demand and the supply chain's short, then that's great. It's trying to find a really good fit for indoor vertical farming to augment traditional agriculture. We don't see it replacing it. We see it slotting in and augmenting for crops that make sense. And that's potentially growing crops, in the winter that you can't grow outdoors. It's growing crops that you're importing. So it's being smart about how you deploy it and quite surgical in what you grow. And you'll see that the adoption will make sense. But not trying to replace broadacre and traditional agriculture.
And Karim would like to know, what are some of the tools and tech heavily used by the team, and how do software teams integrate their work with knowledge from the agri specialists?
So, tools that the team are using, and I'll answer because it's a tech question on the development side. So the guys that are actually building our tech platform are working in and using tools like Jira, and they're doing agile sort of fortnightly sprints and actually running processes enabled by technology to keep on track of development of the code. So to that end, I think the actual using the suite of services and so on within our cloud provider also helps us. And we've been using some open source tools to try and fast track some of the building of our tech as well, rather than build everything from scratch. So that's a philosophy we've got, is to get the functionality to market quickly and don't build everything from scratch. So we've been pragmatic there. I think the other part of the question around how we actually get people to integrate and collaborate might be a bit too technical for me. I'm not really sure how to answer that one, Britt. I apologise, but maybe Karim could drop us a line and we can take it offline.
Yeah, no worries, Paul. Thank you so much for that. And it's been quite a phenomenal year for you, and for the last three for that matter. And no doubt you've got a lot in store for 2021. And what's on the cards for Invertigro next year?
It is a very big year for us, Brett. We've got the product in the final stages of pre-commercialization trials. So we've got a bunch of customer pilots we'll be running, and that's with some big name organisations that have backed us and said, yeah, we believe in what you guys are doing. And so we're really excited to get our product out there with them and the produce that they can grow with it out to their customers. So that'll be a huge validation step for us. We know it's great, but now actually, to bring it to life. So through the first half of 2021, we'll be doing that, a whole lot of customer pilots and helping our customers to validate their business case and be happy that they're going to get what they were hoping out of an Invertigro farm when they then pull the trigger on actually getting on board, and we'll start then deploying those farms from the second half of next year. So for me and the team, building the supply chain, we're locking down the tooling and all the manufacturers and the inbound supply chain. So there's a lot of stuff happening on the logistics, procurement and supply chain front. The engineering teams tweaking the final designs based on learnings from those customer pilots. And then the tech team busy building the platform and fine-tuning the software as we go as well. So a lot to happen. And in amongst all that, the horticultural team continuing to add to the database and add to our range of crops. I think we've got 100 or more cultivars grown successfully so far, and we keep adding to that. So the software can then be tuned accordingly to grow different things. So a really big year of getting to market basically, and getting the business off and away.
Well, Paul, it sounds absolutely an amazing year lined up, and no doubt you'll be looking for talent to help you join you execute on all of these things. So how should people get to contact you about this or keep abreast?
Yes, so please, just as asked earlier on, I think for us, we'll be looking in the new year at some interns, and we'll definitely be looking to bolster the team through the first half of next year as we get into more operational roles and continue to build across the tech team as well. So we'll need some additional programmers. So I think if you could reach out via info@invertigro.com, and we'd love to hear from you.
Well, that's fantastic. Thank you so much. We could spend hours chatting, but we've covered a lot of ground here today, and want to thank you for your time and all the great advice you've given and shared with everyone here today. And I'd like to thank everyone for joining us and posting your questions, and for those who will view this session later on. So if you want to know more about Invertigro, it's info@invertigro.com.au, and stay in touch with Paul. The Cicada team will send around a link in order so you can do that too. And please check the Cicada website for all the open jobs that we have right now. The Emerge STEM and Careers Technology Expo could not be possible without the support of our sponsor, the City of Sydney, and event partner, South Eveleigh. Thank you so much.